Hi everyone, it's Chris here from OPMC, and today I really want to bust what I think is one of the biggest myths in e-commerce, which is that dropshipping is dodgy. Stay away from it. It really isn't, and I want to take some time to cover some of the basics as to why it isn't dodgy and why you should give it a go if you're considering a side gig or to start your own business. You know, when I started e-commerce, it was called internet marketing in the early 2000s. It wasn't called e-commerce, especially in New Zealand, where even the internet was quite new at the time. And so it was more focused on how do you market yourself effectively online to make an income. And it was much simpler. There was no Facebook, there was no Twitter, there was no social media at all. The social media was the newspaper or the community newspaper. There was no such thing as these online systems that we have today. There was no Google even, right? So I suppose for me, when I look at any online business and how to be successful online, I'm looking at some fundamental principles that make that happen rather than perhaps any hype that surrounds any one particular industry. But let's look at dropshipping. And let's start with Google's definition of dropshipping, which I think is really telling. So Google's definition, which gets taken from one of their most popular referral sites, dropshipping is a form of a retail business wherein the seller accepts customer orders without keeping stock on hand. Mind blown. It's a really fundamental, basic concept. In fact, I think it's a really good one. But let's continue on and talk a little bit about why it gets a bad rap and what we can do about it. So I think saying that that drop shipping is dodgy is kind of like saying that real estate is dodgy. It's actually not real estate that's dodgy. It's going to be those few dodgy people that you've dealt with. That's some dodgy real estate agents which have made the experience bad for you, right? Or your friends have talked about it, that sort of thing. Now, in dropshipping, I think it's the same problem. The fundamental business concept is very sound, but it's just that you have people trying to sell you courses that are no good, people trying to sell you their time when they don't actually know what they're doing, and people just generally stealing your money and not giving anything of value in exchange in the dropshipping industry. And it's going to be the case with anything that's hyped up, anything that's popular. There's going to be heaps of people which are trying to take advantage of suckers, right? So you've really got to be well informed when you're looking at how to create and grow a dropshipping business, and watch out for these dodgy elements. I think that those bad actors really have given a bad rap. I have some other thoughts on it too, but definitely people trying to sell the dream that a lot of prospective dropshippers have, which is this whole idea about this false idea about, it's a get rich quick scheme. I'm going to make millions of dollars and I'm going to retire early from doing dropshipping. I don't think that that's realistic for most people. I think that if you work hard and you apply some sound business principles and planning and concepts, that you can do really well. You can make millions of dollars, but you can't go into it with that being your mindset, because you might be disappointed, especially if you expect that to come out of very little effort. I think one of the other issues over the past wee while with dropshipping is definitely distribution issues. So many dropshippers rely on distribution from China, and this has been such a major issue. If you've had your head stuck in the sand for the last 3 years, I can tell you that China has had a lot of distribution problems, as has the world itself. And so this has definitely negatively impacted on dropshipping and that whole industry, because people will buy from a dropshipper, whether they know it's a dropshipper or not, and there might be huge wait times, right? Now, if I really want a product, am I going to wait 30 days? If that's not the expectation that's set, if I, as a dropshipper, thought it was going to take 1 or 2 weeks for delivery, is the customer willing to wait for that, or are they going to go with someone else, right? They might have the same problem with someone else. But I think that that's definitely contributes to some of the bad or negative press is distribution timeframes. I think it's fair to say that well-established businesses who are willing to invest in warehousing and retail space and stock are going to if they're super efficient, have a much better setup for being able to deliver stuff straight away. But I don't think that that's guaranteed. I don't think that that's necessarily going to be more reliable than a well-run dropshipping business. So what are some of the pros that I see with dropshipping and why I think it's a really good fundamental idea? Firstly, if you're a small business, it's super efficient in terms of not holding stock. So when we started our own e-commerce businesses in 2007, 2008, we didn't have to hold stock, and I couldn't think of anything worse. Traditionally, we're coming from the digital product space, so holding products, that we have to sell before, that we have to get rid of, we have to sell, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. It seems incredibly inefficient, and it's what a lot of people do every day, right? But as a model where you don't have to be the person purchasing stock in order to sell stock, it makes a lot of sense. Why do you have to purchase stock to sell it? Purchase it and hold on to it, right? It should be that it makes a lot of sense in terms of your costs and hassle to your new business, that if you don't have to hold on to stock, that's a big boon, right? It makes a lot of sense. So I think fundamentally it's really good for that reason, and why it worked really well for us too. And the other thing I think is it's such a common form of business model. You just don't have any idea just how many people out there who are free of the hype, they've run their businesses successfully for many years, they don't actually hold stock, or they don't hold much stock at all, which is this drop shipping model. So the business that we were operating that sold, that was sort of on the drop shipping model, I suppose you could say, 10 plus years ago, was actually, we didn't look like what a drop shipping business would look like today. We're just a standard business selling encrypted storage devices, and we didn't actually have to hold any stock the whole time. There were some challenges around that, but I think that they were outweighed by the fact that we didn't have to buy stock and hold on to it before we could sell it. Because the thing is, you can get an idea of what's popular and what's going to sell. You can't predict when it's going to sell, and you can't predict necessarily as a small business what the benefits of holding that stock are going to be, right? There might be a potential promise that it's going to be better for you and you're going to be more competitive against your peers by holding the stock, but that's not guaranteed. If you can be smarter about how you're operating, then those sort of issues melt away to a large extent. Yeah, sure. If you were the person who was holding stock when there were massive distribution issues, you're going to be the winner, right? And you can sell for a much higher price than everyone else who is going to be delivering in 30 to 60 or an unknown period of time, right? So, that's definitely a major consideration. The other thing is, I think that it's really effective when you plan it well. And planning comes down to understanding your market, understanding what you're doing, understanding the technology, and being able to put them together. I personally think if you take the approach of a brand rather than be focused more on advertising, then I think you'll get better results. So what I mean by that is that a lot of dropshipping businesses are focused around Facebook advertising and creating successful formulas where they have, they know that if they spend $1 on advertising on Facebook, they're going to make $5 back. And so they have a formula, it works well, but they're not creating a brand. If you create a brand, you're creating something that people have a feeling towards, hopefully a positive feeling, and that they want to, you want to develop brand loyalty so that people will keep coming back and buying from you again and again. I think when you're just focused on advertising, there's this risk there that you're going to, it's going to cost more, your acquisition costs will be much higher, a problem in the industry at the moment, and definitely a risk for people who are focused entirely on advertising. Whereas if you're focused a bit more on a brand approach, then this is just about creating a logo, having an identity in the marketplace, using content as an effective mechanism to sell, content marketing, that sort of thing, and There's a whole lot of other things to it, obviously, but I think that to create a lasting brand that is more profitable, you need to have an identity that people can relate to. And that's where the whole idea of creating a brand for your dropshipping comes in. So to summarize, don't be scared. Things like skills, practice, and learning can overcome most of the problems and challenges that you're going to have. There is a risk that you will fail, but don't be afraid of that. It's a learning experience. I think where the problem is going to come in is where you overinvest in your new business venture and you rely on third parties and you pay them too much money and they don't know what they're doing. I think that that's where a lot of that bad reputation comes from in the dropshipping space. Ultimately, it's up to you to make your dropshipping business successful, and I think that that should be the focus and top priority in your mind. Well, everyone, I think that's it from me for today. I hope that gives you a bit of insight into how I view dropshipping, how it really isn't dodgy at all, and how it's a really valuable business model that can work really well if you put in the time and effort. If you want to find out more from us, please subscribe to our channel and tell us what you'd like to hear about. And if you like this video, please give it the thumbs up. If you didn't like it, please give it the thumbs down and tell us why. We always want to know your thoughts. And thanks for watching.